Hey everybody, welcome to InPsight Radio. I am your host, Danielle Egnew, and you are a fly on the wall to everywhere. Man, can you believe how fast this summer is flying by? I cannot believe it. We are at the end of August already, and I'm like, how did we even get here? And I'm so grateful because we really have not had hardly any forest fires at all in Montana. So that's been nice. I mean, there's been some blowing in from other places, but it's been so nice. So I'm hoping that you're getting out. I'm hoping that you're having the ability to have some fun out in your summer before we lose our summer. So we're in the heat. We're in the August heat right now. It's a little much. But anyway, so excited to have you guys here today. And I'm looking ahead into our fall. And one of the things that I'm seeing here is a pretty pronounced shift in actually things looking a little better. Now, you know, we've had a lot of heavy. We've had a lot of things that were going to get rough. We've had a lot of things that were going to get intense. We've talked a lot about how to continue to hold our particular frequency of thought in a pretty good place. Excuse me, got a few allergies here passing through this summer. So honestly, I think as we look into this time frame, one of the things that we could really, really appreciate is the fact that all of this collective work that we've been doing in the ethers, as far as just improving everything, is working, you guys. Now, that's not to say that we don't have a little bit of, Old West stuff that we're going to encounter and whatnot. Yet, overall, going into, the fall and the winter, we're setting ourselves up for some pretty good headway. And one of the things we can look at here is the fact that, with what we've got going on in the world, as well as the United States, there are really a lot of people who are reevaluating kind of not only what they're doing with their life. We've talked about the Great Resignation of 2020 going into 2021 and 2022. We've talked about the fact that 2022 is the year of expansion, and it definitely is. I mean, we are flying forward, and you got to remember, gang, that the year of expansion is going to affect a lot of different things. And if my consciousness is in a great space, then I'm going to expand positively in that way. If my consciousness is in a not such good space, it's going to expand in the not so good way, right? So, I mean, we've got an equal opportunity here in our spiritual physics to expand out no matter what we're focusing on. And of course, I've been talking for years on this podcast. Watch what you focus on. You'll bring it to you exponentially. I mean, I've been harping on that for a while. But really what we're looking at here is a giant expansion time. And I want you to think about a black hole. Okay? Because this podcast is all about the end of the year of expansion. And really, I mean, we're not at the end yet, but we're coming, we're about 2/3 of the way through August here. So we're cutting through it. And so as we look forward into the year of expansion, what does that mean? What does that mean for us? Where is your life right now? I mean, is it in a space where you are really excited about it? Or is your life in a space where you're like, oh my God, this is not where I thought it would be. I don't like this, Where is it? So when you look at that and our expanding energies, I want you to think about going up to a black hole. Now, here's a little space physics for everybody, and I'll try to make it as fun as possible for you non-sciencey people. However, in astrophysics, as you approach what's called the event horizon of a black hole, that's a fancy way to say the energy edges of a black hole. Now, the more you scoot close to a black hole, they theorize, whoever they are, very smart people in stuffy cubicles doing stuffy things, but they theorize that the closer you get to the black hole, the more time slows down because space-time is distorted by high gravity environments. Now, we really don't know if this is true or not, to be honest. We're kind of guessing based on what we know about the fabric of space, which, might I add, is very little. Okay, we don't know a whole lot about the fabric of space, but we try. So anyway, as we get closer to this, a black hole is a thing in space, and they call it a singularity. So as we get closer to the thing in space, as we get closer to the singularity, then time slows down. So I want you to think about the expansion period of 2022 as getting closer to the edge of the event horizon of a black hole. Now, what does that mean? Now, time is obviously sped up. We've talked about that. For years and years, I've talked about that. Oprah talked about that 10 years ago, 15 years ago. She had physicists on her show, her then show, which talked about the fact that we were entering a time acceleration point because of where the Earth was wobbling through the Milky Way galaxy. You know, we're not just sitting here. We're on a great big, like, think of waves on an ocean. We're on a wobble. We're still riding cosmic waves from the Big Bang, you guys. No lie. So our entire solar system goes up and down like a bobber, like Wilson on the top of a stormy sea in Castaway. Actually, it's not stormy. It's more like just watching, you know, a crabbing buoy just bob up and down on some gentle, normal tidal waves coming in. That's what our solar system does, right? And it does that slowly over a 50 to 75,000 year period. It bobs up and down. And we're in the bob portion where we're in a high gravitational belt that's created by the black hole that is in the middle of our Milky Way. And yeah, there's a great big black hole in there. That's why we have all this stardust, all these four legs of the Milky Way galaxy. That's where universes are born, is in the death of a star, blah, blah, blah. So speeding up, why is 2022 and coming towards the end of 2022, why is that like approaching the edge of the event horizon of a black hole? Why is time slowing if even Oprah said her physicists were saying that time was speeding up? Why is that? Well, even though time is speeding up because we're in the high gravitational well zone of the Milky Way, which is a flat disk, by the way, it's a section in the middle of that disk that shoots out in the big Milky Way galaxy, and there's more gravity in it. So it compresses space-time, is the theory. And that would be really a good reason why you look at your clock and you're like, well, wait a minute. I just thought 10 minutes went by, and like 45 minutes went by, and you're like, oh God, now I'm late for 17 appointments. I'm going to be so popular right now. People love me. I love me. So as you get where you're going, you've been noticing it like time is flying, right? So it's antithetical almost to say that as we get to 2022, it's going to seem in ways like time slows down because we're approaching the event horizon of 2022. Now, the year of expansion, of course, and if you think about a black hole, 2022 itself is the black hole. Maybe that summarizes some of your years you've had. I don't know. But 2022, God, that's funny. 2022 is the actual black hole. And it was a star and exploded outward, right? So there's all that velocity and expansion. Yeah, we're going to the end of it there. So we're going into the black hole because backwards physics state that to get to the end of a black hole, you have to go through it. I know, it gets weird. But anyway, the point I'm trying to make, gang, is that you're going to notice from here on out, there's going to be a ton of things happening in your day, especially as we get more into September, October. There is going to be a ton of things happening in your day, and you're going to be like, oh my God, this one day seems like it was 4 days packed into one. So that is the refraction, that is the time refraction, is how I'd put it to you, of time speeding up, and at the same time, the amount of things that the clock hands are moving faster around and around 24 hours, but within the clock hand swing, it's seeming like you're packing more days into that one swing. So it's a time refraction that we're experiencing right now. So it's gonna, especially as we get towards the end of the year, by the time we hit September, October, you guys are going to be like, why does it feel like I stuck 3 days into one day? Was that today? I thought that was yesterday. So that's going to be a really weird thing when we get closer to the end of the year. By the time we hit the solstice, December 21st, that's going to be super surreal, you guys. That's going to be one of those things where you're like, is it still the 21st? Wasn't I doing this like 200 years ago? Has this been one day? So we have a time compression, which makes it seem like time is flying. And at the same time, the flying time is slowing. So what it enables you to do is get a crap ton more done in the day that you have, even though the day is flying by. I hope that was semi-clear, sort of. So what does that mean? 2022's year of expansion. A lot of things have happened this year, right? And what we're going to see from now till the end of the year, and this is really going to get prevalent, I think, more towards the fall, probably halfway through September out is what I'm seeing here. But we're going to be seeing a lot of outstanding issues come to fruition, okay? So those outstanding issues that are going to come to fruition are really, they're pretty powerful. And some of those outstanding issues are big. They're big. And they also have imprints on them that are going to set things on a different trajectory, by the time we get to 2023. What are they? Well, we're going to be seeing some comeuppance. We're going to get some comeuppance with some government issues, and all of the stuff that we're seeing with old Trump stuff, old January 6th stuff. I mean, and some of that's kind of churning right now. But we're really going to see some serious consequence come out of all this, and it's going to appear to happen rather quickly. Now, with the consequence that comes in, and again, it's going to be one of those, because keep in mind, even though time is sped up, there's going to be a billion things happening in one day, okay? And like I said, be more on the lookout for that around September, October to really notice it coming, but I want to give you a heads up, okay? So you're going to be hanging out, and all of a sudden it's going to be like, oh my God, I have like 9 really major headlines in one day. But it's not like the histrionic ambulance chasing headline weirdness of breaking news that we all kind of numbed out to that we saw during the Trump era. And I don't know if you're like me, but by God, breaking news became a joke in my household. I mean, it was like, breaking news, someone in the Trump administration did something else that was shockingly bad. It was a joke. And I do believe that our media providers pretty much figured out, well, we probably shouldn't be saying breaking news every 10th of a second because nobody really takes it all that seriously anymore. So what you're going to be noticing in our news cycles coming up is there, rather than like breaking news, you'll notice they kind of have dropped that in media. And I work in media, and I did hear some background chatter with some of my other folks who work in news channels talking about the fact that people just tuned out. There was too much histrionic weird crap. They pushed it too far. And ratings on all news channels right now, gang, on all except for Fox News and Newsmax, which is not a news channel. Newsmax is a weird, fakey-bakey, histrionic, It's just like a opinion show, and they make it look like a news program. And so if you're a Newsmax watcher, knock yourself out. Yet really, really, really understand you're watching the National Enquirer of news. So if they talk about Elvis being on the moon with Hitler, probably not true, okay? They're a sensationalistic TV tabloid, and they have a lens that is focused on some really super fringy conspiratist stuff that is being espoused by a lot of highly odd extremist modalities that are hiding in the Republican Party. And I'm really careful to separate my normal, just fiscal, I don't care who you sleep with, I don't care if you have an abortion, you do you, just don't overtax me. I am really careful to separate my normal Republican friends who just don't want to be overtaxed and let's just be cool and pull our weight from the extreme Handmaid's Tale devotees that really are a product of, the Handmaid's Tale author had a baby with Darth Vader, and now we have this weirdness, Also, let's not forget, there was probably an affair somewhere with the editor of the National Enquirer and a Hollywood screenwriter. So then we come up with this insane garbage. And I only call it garbage, you guys, because I don't care what you ingest. Do what you want, believe what you want, read what you want, adhere to what you want. Just please don't harm others with it. Do no harm. Do no harm, okay? So when I see these periodicals like Newsmax doing a lot of harm, it makes me sad because there's a lot of sweet babies out there, gang, who believe it. They believe it. And then their little sweet baby endocrine systems go to hell on them because they're like, oh my God, Hitler's on the moon. It's with Elvis and they're going to kill us with Jewish space lasers. Oh, Jesus. And there's people stroking out everywhere from Alabama to Georgia to Kentucky to Louisiana, just dropping dead. It's very sad. So let us not be mean to these folks. Let us send them a sense of decorum, peace, and wisdom, okay? So they don't let themselves get so spun up on the it wishes it was the National Geographic, the National Enquirer version of the news, which is Newsmax. So getting back to the whole point here, I got the angel who walks with the world trying to keep me on topic over here. It's like, hey, allergy lady, snap to, come on. The point being is that our news stations have had a drop in ratings because everybody got tired of the chronic, weird, fakey, bakey, bad news. And I'm not saying the news is fake. I'm saying the breaking headlines, that sensationalized energy. People really no longer saw it as breaking. They saw it as just attention seeking. So the news has really, unless it's really, really something major, the news has dropped a lot of this breaking news kind of stuff. And what you're going to notice in your feeds, if you are like me, my Google feed is insanely tracking everything I look at. And I have purposefully been searching all kinds of interesting science facts. So now I get all cool science facts on my Google feed when I trained my AI off of politics, because come on, man. You're going to start seeing a lot of big news hitting in one day. And you might ask yourself, well, gee, why doesn't this have the big breaking news moniker? And as I stated, it's because the news channels are giving it a rest. However, with our slowing time in the fact that it's sped up, what that means is more really important things happen in 24 hours, okay? So we're going to be seeing a lot of just big issues. And there's going to be a lot of movement. And I know, you guys, this is kind of old news because I've been talking about this since the beginning of 2022, but we're going to see a lot of movement with the old world that was getting ready to just poop out and be gone and, be gone. And we're going to see a lot of movement on old ways of doing things that are going to get put to rest. And a lot of that is old guard corporate business, gang. Our world is getting too small for us to just ignore the fact that we need to update. We need to do an update. I know we all hate the updates. We need to do an update on our operating system. And now, we're knocking on almost 8 billion people. And I think they're estimating that in 2023, or any time now, somewhere between now and 2023, the 8 billionth person is going to be born on this planet. So we can't really do the business as usual. We can't really do the, what's mine is mine and it's mine. fine. That's going to get rough with this many people. And a majority of our population base on the earth are in India and China. And we have like double number billions of people in both of those countries. So those are also countries, especially India, that suffer from a tremendous amount of poverty. So the emotional inequity on the earth is pretty huge. Now, why am I bringing all this up? What the hell does all this have to do with the event horizon of 2022 and so many things getting packed in before the end of the year? Well, the reason I'm giving you a shout out about this is because it might feel a little overwhelming with how much we're going to get hit with. And I just want you to remember that you are a biological creature that is Bluetoothed to the planet Earth. And the planet Earth is an amazing magnetic semiconductor, especially with electromagnetic fields. So when you're feeling like you're spinning out or there's too much happening, and again, it's not going to be the same weird, like, breaking news. We're not going to get all that like we did back in the dark times. But we are going to notice that a lot is happening. And we're going to question, well, gee, how come this wasn't made a bigger deal of? And just remember, it wasn't made a bigger deal because the news stations are trying to tone down the deep histrionics. Because God, what if something really bad actually does happen? And everybody's tuning it out. So one of the things that we're going to see are corporate entities who are held to account. And there is going to be a big, it's already starting. It's already starting if you're a newsreader. But there's going to be a big ending shakeup with how authority is perceived, okay? So here we're looking at this, and obviously, we're coming into the January 6th stuff and all the stuff and all the things. And we're going to be seeing some very, very definitive legal action taken against those who have broken the law. And so that's, some of the folks in January 6th that were big players in the insurrection, some of those the insurrection attempt. There's going to be people brought to justice, or, justice is an interesting term because there's a lot of people who feel that Donald Trump and his family are being treated unjustly. So how about if I just say that there are going to be people who the law will be applied to, the rule of law will be applied to, and we're going to see that with the Trump family. We're going to see that throughout government, actually. And the way that this is all played out is that it's going to seem like nothing's happening, and then boom, big headline. Then nothing's happening, and boom, big headline. And the reason that our Department of Justice is keeping kind of a quieter lid on all of this is because they, too, are experiencing the same time compression, you guys. So they're going through the same day going, wow, we're really losing calendar days here. It's almost all the way through the summer. Here we are. And the time is, I always think of time right now as those 1940s montages where they showed like the halftone image of a calendar with the days just ripping off, and it was kind of ghosted over the top of a montage of somebody doing a million things. That's what I feel like. So even our Department of Justice is looking at the calendar going, man, we're almost to the end of this year and we need to get a move on. Yet because of the time compression and getting to the event horizon of the singularity of the end of 2022, which is the center of it, which is the creation point of it, which is the center of the black hole, they're able to do a lot more in the day a lot faster because the time compression is happening. Okay? So we're going to be seeing, they're getting a lot done. And we're going to be seeing some twists and turns. And of course, there's some legal foolery and all the things and the jiving and the twisting. However, before the end of 2022 is out, there's going to be some pretty definitive hammers that are going to come down on the old world. And I tell you what, it's going to be non-discriminate. So if we have whomever would have been part of these old world, old shady, big pot-bellied men with the monocle chomping on the cigar, backroom deals. I mean, if you can envision the hammer coming down on that system, anybody who's involved in that system, this is political party notwithstanding, is going to get smushed right out. And the Department of Justice is going to come under a lot of fire. And, I don't think that's a shock to anybody. I mean, if you've been paying attention to the Newsmax folks, those poor babies, you guys, and I probably shouldn't even say it like that because it probably sounds a little demeaning to folks who have that belief system, but it's truly how I feel, okay? And I'm not going to pretend I don't feel that way. I just want to pick them all up and hug them, all the folks who believe all the QAnon stuff, and a lot of that has been removed out of the media because the media finally got wise and realized, maybe we had something to do with the spread of the popularity of this movement called Trump. Oh, goodness. Uh-oh. So they've, made some steps to maybe not pour as much gasoline on the giant raging dumpster's fire that you can not only see from space, but you can see from the outer rim of our solar system from space. It's so huge. It looks like the whole Earth is being engulfed in the dumpster. So our media is being a little more careful with how they present things. And it makes me sad because there's a lot of sweet babies out there who really do believe the misinformation, the disinformation, the crap that was really sown by some really fantastic, God, I have respect for these weird Russian disinformation folks who sit there and I'm pretty sure they're sitting there and making up crap and pretending they're QAnon and eating pizza and drinking vodka and just laughing their asses off at everybody in their little room doing all these things. However, I mean, obviously, that narrative, even if it was started back in 2016, has really been picked up by a lot of people here in America in the United States, and they're running with it. So what started out as a Russian disinformation campaign is now turned into an American undereducated freak out fear campaign, and now we are here. And I am not saying that undereducated people only are falling for this. I know, regrettably, some highly educated people who really think that Newsmax is the way to go. And I'm like, okay, we clearly are living in different dimensions, but you rock on with that. And the reason they believe it is the way to go is because the math isn't adding up for these very highly educated people about why we're at where we're at as a country, as a United States, with this much money, with this much power. Why are we here? Why are we still struggling financially? Why do we have such a socioeconomic divide? Why are we still thinking that systematic racism is not real? I mean, why is this happening? So a lot of my very educated friends, a few of them, not a lot, but a few of them are like, maybe there's something to all this conspiracy. And I'm thinking, no, it's just corporate greed, you guys. That's it. That's what it comes down to, is the money. So what we're going to be seeing is this hammer coming down on the inequities of the old world in the corporate structure. So that's going to be big Trump news. That's going to be Trump affiliate news. That's going to be government officials who were involved with the planning of January 6th. And they're kind of waiting, it looks like, as I look into this. And this is really a bugger, you guys, to try to look into and figure out timing on when all the January 6th stuff is really going to hit the headlines, because they are working to not tip anybody off about what they really know about everything. Because, Donald Trump and all of his cronies, and when I say Donald Trump, I'm not just talking about the Don, okay? I'm talking about his whole group of folks. And, he was raised, you guys, to believe the kind of business that he did was normal. Honest to God, he was raised to be this guy. And honestly, who's to say you or I would not be in that same boat if we were raised to believe that world where the law doesn't apply to you, where you cut corners, if you screw Peter while you're screwing Paul and paying nobody, then you're a brilliant business person. I mean, who's to say we all wouldn't have ended up that person? I mean, come on. People don't we're not in an egg that gets hatched and then we walk out of, the person we're going to be from that egg. I mean, we're highly imprintable beings. So Here's Trump and the Trump organization and all the people that were sycophantically taking this poor guy's money. And I say poor guy because, God dang, I would hate to be in that position. I don't know why I say this all the time, and I mean it. I don't know what short straw the soul of Donald Trump drew, which is a very old soul. Like I say, you can't come into this earth and keep banging the gong of all this denial without really being dedicated to a mission. And you can't be that dedicated to a mission and not pulled off your mission by learning if you're a young soul. A young soul will go, oh, wait, oh my God, I've done terrible things. I need to go back and say, I'm sorry. An old soul will be like, yep, I'm a putz. Gotta hang in there being a putz till I die. That's the plan. I'll get my Oscar in heaven for a great villain created. And keeping in mind, a lot of people don't see Donald Trump as a villain, quite honestly. They see him as a savior. They see him as Jesus appointed. So, perception's funky, right? So if we look into the old world's hammer coming down on 2022 to 2023, we're seeing the modality, the old kind of backroom, good old boy, really pretty much mobster mentality. We see all of that come to a point where everything is blown out and you get the opportunity to see what we would think of as justice and or just rule of law being applied. Because I might think it's justice for people who have hurt people in a certain way to have the law thrown at them. If I'm a supporter of that person who is getting the law thrown at them, I see it as injustice. Follow this one. So what we're looking at is the DOJ, the Department of Justice, is doing its job, and it's going to have a lot of blowback. And we're really not going to be seeing that, I don't think, as I'm looking into this whole stuff until really October, mid to end. What they're trying to do is get as many screws put down to people who fell into the extremist modality in our government. The Department of Justice is trying to get as many screws put down to those folks. And quite honestly, if there's Democrats who are involved in that, they'll get the screws put down to them too. It's the same energy across the board. They're trying to get that to happen before the midterms coming up in November. And the midterms are going to be producing a lot more, the big red wave that everybody talked about. There's still going to be, of course, Republicans winning, in certain states and whatnot. But it's not going to be the big red wave. And that's what I was talking about at the top of 2022 when I said, you guys, the election results in this year aren't exactly going to be what everybody wants. Because I know there's a lot of people expecting the big red wave, and that's going to make some folks unhappy. And we're going to have a pretty equal blue wave also with the red wave. And it looks like in a couple of states, we're actually going to push forward on some blue people coming in. And a lot of that has to do with the Roe v. Wade stuff. So, with all of that coming through, I would tell you that as we move into this time frame and as we go into what we're looking at, just be prepared for great big news to come out and like kind of a silent spot waiting for the reaction to the news. And we're going to see some pretty crazy stuff with the Department of Justice and the FBI, and they're going to be out there doing their due diligence and popping up where people aren't expecting them and raiding things. And that's going to be their thing that they're going to do. And that's going to go all the way through October that I'm seeing here. So in September, when we get there, when all of this weird news starts hitting, keep in mind it's a cumulative effort. We're not going to see one big issue come to resolve right away. And that's part of this 2022, the year of expansion. Think about a roller coaster, you guys. When you go up over the top of the roller coaster and you're coming down the roller coaster, all right, you're racing down it. As you're racing down it, you pick up momentum, right? That's the gravity of the situation. So what we're going to be looking at are all kinds of news items here that are going to pick up momentum as they go. So as we get closer to the end of 2022, really with the push through October, because they're trying to get as much through as they can before the midterms, that might inform voters. And I got to tell you, gang, there's a lot of people well, no, not a lot. It seems like a lot to me. I wouldn't say there's a lot. I would say that about a third of the country really, 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 really wants the country to collapse. Now, that's not a majority, but there's a third of the country that really does believe that our government is broken, everything's broken, we need to start again. And I always say, please, let's not burn it down, because what happens when you burn something down? The person with the most organization and money comes in and rebuilds. And the same people trying to burn it all down have their own template for this Handmaid's Tale wackadoodle land and a lot of money to back that template. So this idea, which is wildly naive, that if we get out there and say, I'm just going to burn it down, anarchy, we're just going to build a world in our image and stuff. No, you're not. You will torch it down and have somebody poised to come right in and make some dystopian place, because that's what they've been trying to do since about 1980, okay? Really since 1950. And they didn't really have a means, that extremist group, to get their hooks in the system until fairly recently. So, it really started with Ronald Reagan, and that poor naive guy who's, God, he had no idea what they were doing. He was just so flattered that somebody would want him to be president. And, he was a conservative, an old school conservative. And here comes this group and appeals to him and says, all you got to do is say God a lot and you'll win. And he did. So the thing to tell you here is that as we get closer through this year of expansion and we're looking at the big news headlines and all the things, and here comes justice or here comes the rule of law, we are going to see also not only people going, yay, go rule of law, this is really exciting, yay. We are also going to see the flip side of the expansion of fear consciousness. So just be aware of it, okay? We're going to have the expansion of the fear consciousness, and that's going to be people who are freaking out about justice and the rule of law being able to touch rich, white people, especially rich white men. So we're going to see a lot of women. Oh, this just kills me. As someone with 2X chromosomes, this just kills me. We are going to see a lot of women who are going to be really just coming to the gaslighting stage to tell everybody how wrong it is that these poor men are getting picked on, and women stand by your man and all the things. And we are also going to see the divine masculine step up, especially to the cray-cray female that's just following the crazy alpha narcissist wackadoodle system right over the cliff. We're going to have a lot of divine masculine that steps up and says, no. I'm really not going to be part of all this. So it's a very interesting divide that we're going to see towards really the remainder of this year. And I really ramping up, like I said, September, October is where this really ramps up. But we're going to get a chance to look into this and understand that there's a big divide coming. And these people who are going to let their fear expand, they're going to feel their time is short. So this is where we're going to see, and I really don't see a lot of this till more after, like I said, I'm kind of seeing more of an October timeline with some of these big heavy hammers coming down legally for people that it's screamingly obvious should have these legal hammers presented to them. So those are coming. And we're going to see people who are so disillusioned by what the Department of Justice and the FBI and I'm seeing other localized governments going after people, the state of Florida, the state of New York. These are going to be states that are going to have officials in them, legal officials, step up and say, hey, guess what? We don't like the way you're doing business here. Whether that's the Trump organization, whether it's a Marjorie Taylor Greene sort of PAC or something, there's going to be states that step up and legal folks in those states saying, and I'm telling you guys, we got to watch Mr. Trump because former President Donald Trump is still a flight risk. They haven't even brought the hammer down as much as they are on this guy. I mean, we're going to watch the screws tighten incrementally, but we're really not going to see the big to-do coming down till closer to the end of the year. Yet this is a person who's not stupid. And there is it's not just Donald Trump, you guys. There is a massive network. And a lot of them have a lot of ties to the Russian interests that cause problems, right? So there's a whole group of them trying to figure out. I keep seeing them in the future. I keep seeing them meeting in these weird little covert places, like whether they're like on a beach where there's no Wi-Fi, or they're all out hiking together, or they're all on a golf course together, or whatever, just kind of grouping together in a seemingly innocuous space, all out there going, yeah, this is, what the hell are we going to do? What are we going to do out here? So there's these hammers coming down. We're going to see some more fear. And a lot of that fear is going to turn into whatever it turns into. And a lot of these folks who are afraid, gang, they see this as like if the Nazis took your country over, that's how they're going to see the Department of Justice going after the folks who have broken the law. Because you've got to keep in mind, the supporters of those folks really believe that they are God sent. Okay? So it's important that we factor in people's expanding belief system. And the closer we get to the end of 2022, the more people are going to invest in this belief system. Do not be, honestly, don't let, there are those of us, okay, let me rephrase this. This angel's helping me with this. If we step back off and we look at the planet, and I've said this multiple times before, however, say you're somebody who really believes that someone like Donald Trump was put here by Jesus. And you look at all the LGBTQ community and you say, those guys are ruining the world. And in your honest to God mind, with how you've been raised, the family you've had, maybe you don't get out there much, maybe you do, but this is so imprinted in you that all of these cues that you are seeing on the news and just general evolution of society is the devil, okay? Then you are going to throw behind someone like Trump who says, boy, do I hear you, and I agree, and you're right, they are the devil. You're not crazy. You're onto something. Those people are going to, of course, follow the person who mirrors their message. And Donald Trump's a lot of things, but he's not stupid, and he certainly is terrific at reading people. So this has created a larger fear pit. And the issue with the larger fear pit is I'm not part of that belief system. So I'm looking at that going, what the hell's wrong with you guys? They're looking at me saying, you cannot see that you are part of the demonic demise of America, and you're polluted with demons, and that's why you're married to a woman. So your opinion, gay lady, is demonic and has zero reach to me. So I don't even listen to you. Because this belief system, gang, you got to remember, is indoctrinated, and it is an indoctrination process. It's very culty. They're indoctrinated to kick out anything that might be of the enemy. That's what they call Satan, the enemy, which weirds me out so much because, that's a biblical thing. But I'm thinking, God created everything, you guys, which means that God created Satan and knew the subsequent chaos was going to enact itself. So where does that leave you? But anyway, that's one of those feedback loops that if you get into it with a person of this modality that I'm speaking about, they just, nope, Satan, that's the enemy trying to cloud my thinking, that's the enemy, and they just tune it out. So why am I saying this? I'm telling you this so we can have some compassion for the people who in such fear are going to be reacting to just basic rule of law being applied to unlawful gangster-like people. Okay, and again, this is going to fall in some funky areas too. I think there's some players that we're going to be a little surprised when this hammer comes down, and Maybe we think they're good guys and you're like, oh, really? Him too? You're kidding. Oh. But hey, the law is the law and it gets applied to everybody. So when this happens, just have compassion, because the expansion of 2022 is going to be the expansion of fear, the velocity of that fear movement, which is going to really rear its head after the midterms. There's been this extremist group has been trying to gerrymander like crazy. I think we're all aware of that. All of the voting lines and districts in many states. We here in Montana, this is like super interesting, are trying to protect our state constitution, you guys, from an extremist agenda that has come from Virginia, I believe, and co-sponsored by one of our little local yokels up here in Helena, Montana. I think they're doing God's work by sponsoring a bill from the Cray Cray factory. But they do believe they're doing God's work. And this bill would do away with our Montana Constitution, which is one of the best, most balanced constitutions in all of the states. It protects the rights of everybody. It protects the rights of private business. It protects the rights of public lands. It protects the rights of all people. It protects the rights, as much as we do, as crappy as we've been to our native communities, but it protects the sovereignty of our native communities and our native nations up here. It is amazing. It says you can't be in here. You can't come in here as a big corporation and drill and pollute everything. I mean, it protects everybody. And of course, we've got some extremists that want to yank our Constitution. And if they yank our Constitution, they're going to replace it with this sort of template Constitution that's going around to a lot of states right now. That is literally an authoritarian police state for religion. I'm not kidding. You can look this up. I can't even make this stuff up. It's like a bad movie from 1991 starring Patrick Swayze. I mean, it's just so weird. So we've got a lot of great people in Montana, even some conservatives that are running, that don't want our Constitution yanked and replaced with this wackadoodle thing that basically pretty much takes rights away from everybody but a certain group of white men. So there's this whole thing going on, and this is what's trying to happen nationwide. And in Montana, we've been fighting like mad to protect our voting rights because we have a Republican majority. We're kind of Old West out here in our state Senate and in our House of Representatives. Excuse me. And we've also got a wacky governor who's way over the edge, and we have some large national politicians who are way over the edge. So what I would tell you here is that the voting, we're going to see a big push towards 2022 from the extremist group to try to push through crazy legislation that has to do with voting restriction. And right now, the state of Montana is blocking these laws that that our local Congress is trying to pass that would restrict voting rights. Our Supreme Court of Montana is like, you guys, this is some crazy crap, and we're not passing this. Hello. But there's movements being made by our local government to remove justices and replace them and do all this weirdo stuff. That's all that kind of, if you will, what I've now termed, the Trumpy law bending loophole stuff that we've seen for 7 years now. I mean, they're trying to play it out here. I believe our voting rights are going to be protected in Montana. We've got some really good people on that right now. But one of the things we're going to be seeing as we come up to this primary, and as we come up to this, not just the primaries, but the general elections, we're going to be seeing a lot of folks who are just freaking out by the general election results in the primary. And a lot of these extremist folks are not going to be super happy with how many blue people get in. And there's a lot of angry women voting. There's a lot of angry women in church secretly voting for healthcare rights. No matter how Republican they've been, they are secretly voting for equality in certain areas. So we're going to start to see the grip of the old world really crumble away as 2022 expands and barrels towards our solstice, on December 21st. So it's going to be a real rodeo, gang. And one of the things that I'm looking forward at is don't freak out about the money, because the money has already started kind of tanking, going towards the recession, right? It's the year of expansion. So we're just going to see more and more and more and more and more and more of a tank. As we go through, the federal government is going to really try not to use the word recession, because that makes people not buy Christmas presents, right? We don't want that. We've got to feed the corporate monster, or it gets angry with us. It does. Woo! Don't feed corporate America and it acts out. So it gets hangry. So the government's going to be trying to not go nuts with using the word recession. However, gang, just remember that we're going to see crappy money, and it's okay. It's going to turn itself around. Money's going to be crappy, pretty much all the way through 2023 into 2024. And I think we saw that coming into 2022. So the year of expansion, this has been a great year to accrue money if you can. And you will notice that at the top of this year, I'm like, look, get all the cash you can, because cash is going to be harder to come by. So this is a great time to make money. It's a great year. Rack up that cash. Now we're starting to see, as we come into the end of the year, things aren't really polishing up, and we just got a dull turd instead of a shiny turd. So no worries. It's okay, though, you guys. Don't worry about it. If you do have stocks in crypto, and I'm going to do a whole podcast on money coming up here next week, I think it's slated. So is it next week? The money one. Okay. Yep. That's next week. So don't panic, and hang on to your stocks, hang on to your crypto. Crypto's going to take a minute, you guys. Again, we're seeing an expansion. Whatever has momentum right now is going to keep having momentum to the end of the year. So we've got some Department of Justice stuff that's going to break September, October, and that's really going to open up, barreling into this end of the year. And by the time we're hitting October, November, December, it's like, oh my God. And watch the Trump family as a flight risk. And just as a slight spoiler, as states who crack down on really, regrettably, even though poor Donald Trump was trained in business this way, he was trained in illegal business dealings that he thought were normal. And he was trained to believe that if he got away with those illegal business dealings, he was a genius. And it made him smart and tough. And he taught that to his children. Now, he's got 2 daughters, and I think Tiffany is one, and she really doesn't have a lot to do with the family. She's like, y'all are cray. So she just stands down the hallway and shouts, no thank you, to all those folks. Turn your attention to Ms. Ivanka. Ivanka, I'll tell you what, you cannot count on a young lady who has been raised in extreme privilege to go down with the ship when the Trump organization gets called out. And that's coming. And, I always say that Al Capone did not get stuck into Alcatraz because he murdered people. He got stuck into Alcatraz for tax evasion. And that's what the federal government, that's what the FBI was able to nail him on. And I've been saying this for a while, but watch the Trump organization, gang, because they are going to get nailed. It's on taxes. It's on business. All of this is coming up. And I'm looking at this, and I'm not a lawyer, obviously, but the way the timelines play out, it does look more like it's not as much of a federal thing. This looks like the state. It looks like the state of New York, who's just like, really? And this is going to bleed down later to attorneys in Florida. Now, Florida is a different state, obviously. You know, that's, what is it, DeSantis territory down there. And it's a little strange anyway. It's in its own little vortex. Poor Florida. God, pray for Florida. Pray for Florida. This upcoming hurricane season is going to be rough on Florida. But anyway, what we're going to see is when all of this old world begins crumbling down and the law steps up and everybody's freaking out and it seems destabilized that great big humans who are very powerful white men in our society are going to have the rule of law applied to them. The first thing that happens is that the money, I want you to think, just imagine a butt, okay? Now imagine the butt puckering a little bit. Oh God, when all the big money white men are called out. So there's not going to be a flow. The flow is going to be I'm just clenching here. With money all the way through as these legal proceedings go on. Because one of the reasons that corporations are going to go, is that the Trump organization is not the only big business that operates like a gangsta hut. And there are going to be other big businesses out there. Wait until 2/3 of the way through 2023 when Amazon gets its comeuppance. That's coming later, but that's a spoiler for next year. But this whole thing that's starting to be set as a precedent is going to trickle down to a lot of different corporations. And what we're going to see towards the very end of 2022 is a lot of corporations coming out being very earth-friendly. We're earth-friendly. We're people-friendly. Go gays. Go black people. You know, go people who don't call yourself a people. We love everybody. Here's $1 million, zillion dollars for the whales and the trees and the air. There are going to be corporations that are going to be like, oh, God. Well, if the Trump organization went down for some of this stuff, we might go down for some of this stuff. And it's really a shame, gang, that corporations, and there are some really great corporations out there. I am not actually anti-money or anti-corporation at all. I love business. I do a lot of business consultation with people. Business can be incredibly powerful if it's just using its powers for good. Seriously, money can be powerful if you're using the money for good. That's one of the reasons I invested in crypto. I invested in this coin called Polydoge. And it's this meme coin thing that's riding on Polygon, which is the Matic token. And I bought like 50 quadrillion of them. Not even kidding. I have like a gazillion of these stupid things all over the place. And those things, of course, are worth like a bazillionth of a penny right now. But my hope, if I'm reading the future correctly, is if the crypto all hits, which it should between 24 and 26, by 28, we're really using it. And why do we do that? Well, it's because, and again, I'll get into that I got this producer over here waving at me like, that's next week's podcast. Wrap this one up. What are you doing? But I'll just spoiler for next week, or teaser for next week, rather. It's not a spoiler. Teaser is that we go to crypto because our money is suffering. Okay. And of course, the American dollar recovers. It always does. It has to. If we collapse, the global economy collapses. So they'll make sure it doesn't collapse, but it's going to wiggle for a while. So I'm hoping that when it's crypto hits, and it would just turn into funny money at that point. It'd be so much of it. It'd be so stupid. Then I can do some really cool things with that. Really exciting things like send people to school and help people get educations and build recycling centers. And money is fun if you can just do fun things with it. So money and corporations aren't bad. It's how we use the tools we're given. And so we're going to be seeing a lot as we get barrel into, especially October, November, really. We're going to see a lot of these corporations coming out saying, we really just appreciate the earth and stuff, because they're going to try to get out of crosshairs. And I'm not saying every single corporation that wants to support Earth or the LGBT community or the people of color community are trying to cover their butt. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying it's going to inspire corporations to really go that extra mile and do the right thing, which I think is hysterically funny. that sometimes you have to get a little paranoid before you do the right thing. So gang, 2022, we're coming to the last third of it here. And that's what we can do with the velocity of the year of expansion. Any projects you have going on, you're going to see a huge uptake in their momentum once we start going through September, October, November. So if you've got positive projects going on, that's really going to pick up. You're going to get wins in the trade sales of your opportunity. They're going to start coming back there. In part, that's because of our beautiful business planet, Mr. Saturn, who's been, taking a break on the Caribbean beaches for about, by the time we get to October, it will be 6 months that planet has sat there with its feet up. It's not the only retrograde planet, but all of that wind coming back in with Saturn, details, taxes, business movement. That's one of the reasons that we're going to be seeing some of the hammers coming down on corporate America legally starting around October. It's because Saturn goes direct. So, the legal arbiter is in the house and it's going to come in there and do what it does. Saturn cleans it all up and gets grumpy about oversight and lack of oversight and overstepping. And Saturn's going to be the 1950s dad and rein it all in. And so gang, just be aware and use this time to get your projects finished up. Are you writing a book? You're going to smoke on it right now. Are you building a house? Boy, are you going to make headway. Just keep the mind and consciousness out of the bummer zone, because this is a really easy time to go down a rabbit hole of woe and blahs and blues. So put your sights and your hands towards projects and get finished with what you're trying to get finished up with, okay? And you guys, thanks so much. I'm going to go drink some water. Sorry about the old, I'm waiting for the old summer bloom to stop here. It is what it is. It's August. So thanks, everybody. And I will see you next podcast.